There
we go.
Well, hello, this is Jeff Gaudiosi, and you're on misplacedstraws.com, where music comes to life. And my guest today is the son of legendary Cream bassist Jack Bruce, but he's also a top musician himself. He spent the last few years helping assemble a project called Heavenly Cream, an acoustic tribute to Cream. The record features a litany of stars paying homage to his father's band, and it'll be released everywhere on November 3rd. Please welcome Malcolm Bruce. Welcome, Malcolm.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for having me. I like that word litany. It's got a number of connotations. So there you go. Sounds like a sort of lineup in a jail somewhere, which is
There you
probably
go.
appropriate.
Yeah. So now this record, it has a really long history. It goes back 5 or 6 years, beginning with Cream lyricist Pete Brown. Talk a little bit about how this idea first got started and how you got involved in it.
Well, yeah, it's good you mentioned Pete Brown. He passed away earlier this year. He was our friend, our family friend, somebody that I worked with for most of my life as a musician. And it was really his idea in collaboration with the record label Quarto Valley. They were talking about another project, and then the idea came up to do an acoustic tribute to Cream and shoot a documentary that alongside it, a sort of making of documentary. So Pete then came to me and asked me if I wanted to be involved, and Rob Cass, the producer, Mark Waters, who directed and edited the documentary. So we sort of formed the core creative group, and then we started reaching out to various artists from that point.
And one of the really incredible things with this record, you mentioned how we just lost Pete recently, earlier this year. This record really captures the final performances of quite a few legendary people, Pete being one of them, Ginger Baker, Bernie Marsden, who we just lost. As it went on, how important was it to you to make sure that this music came out not only as a tribute to Cream, but as a tribute to the people who played on it that we lost?
Yeah, I mean, as is the nature of these things, I mean, we thought, I think most of us thought that the record would be out by we recorded in 2018, so I think we thought sort of the back end of 2019 going into 2020 would be the launch of the project. And then obviously we all went into the pandemic, and sort of all our lives changed at that point. So I think the reason it's been 5 years in the making is partly the pandemic sort of slowed the process down. And so we didn't really know at that point, that this would be Ginger Baker's last recording, or Pete for that matter. I mean, Pete did a lot of other work since this record, but obviously as it's coming out, he's passed away. Pee Wee Ellis is on the record, and he passed away as well. Pee Wee being the sax player from James Brown's band, but also worked with Ginger in the UK because he lived in the UK for a long time. So there's quite a few people, and Bernie, obviously, who was a dear friend and an amazing guy. So yes, I mean, you don't really sort of we weren't preempting all of this, it just kind of happened. That's, I guess, some people are reaching that age where perhaps they're going to pass on, depending on if they ate their greens, or if they how many steps on the treadmill. I mean, you can't, you just can't predict any of this stuff.
Right.
So we're just glad. I think we're all collectively glad that we have it as a kind of document, a little bit of a sort of tribute to them at this point as well. And obviously they had incredible careers separately from this record, but this record is actually a testament as well towards the end of their lives. So yeah, it's really lovely to have that, and to have a documentary where they're being interviewed. And we were in Abbey Road, which is it's always a nice thing to be in Abbey Road. It's like a lovely environment to make a record. So I think we're just grateful that we have it, and it turned out well, I think.
And you mentioned the documentary. How will that be released? Is it going to be combined with the record? Is it going to be available separately?
It's already, I believe it's already available to download in the US. I don't have the
Mhm.
streaming details. It's sorry, it's available to stream in
Yeah.
the US, but I'm not quite sure which streaming platform that is. It should be on the Quarter Valley website, or propermusic.com are distributing the actual record. So I would imagine the information is already online. I'm not sure if it's going to be an actual physical documentary
Mhm.
for release these days. I don't. Do we have
Yeah.
that anymore? I don't know
Exactly.
whether we have that. But the actual record will be available as a download, as a CD, and also as a double vinyl as well. So anybody that's into like the high end audiophile stuff, they can get a nice sort of thick two vinyl package as well of the record, which is nice to have.
We mentioned the litany of guests.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's so diverse, and I love it. I mean, you have blues greats like Bobby Rush and Joe Bonamassa taking the lead. The incredible Deborah Bonham, who I've had the pleasure of interviewing before, sister of John, who's an incredible vocalist in her own right, as well as somebody like Nathan James, a younger guy who's more known in the melodic rock world. What
Yeah.
was it like? Because you take part in a lot of the songs on the record. What was it like working with such a diverse cast of characters?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of ended up feeling like I was playing a supportive role. You know, I played bass, I played
Mhm.
piano, I played a bit of guitar. But I mean, Nate, I first met Nathan. I actually did. I put together a tribute to my dad 2 years after he passed away, he passed away in October 2014. And myself and Pete Brown, we sort of curated a concert in London 2 years later, Shepherd's Bush Empire. And that was the first time I met Nathan. He came in at the suggestion of a friend to come in and actually perform for us. So we had Trevor Horn on bass for a song with Nathan, also Gary Husband on drums, and Steve Hackett, and myself on bass. So we did 2 or 3 songs with Nathan, and that was the first time I really got got to meet him and realize his talent. So I think when we started putting this project together a year and a half, 2 years later, it made total sense to reach out to him and see if he wanted to be involved. He's just a great talent, obviously. Um, so that worked out really well, and everybody else involved, they all kind of made sense in terms of the history. That's the thing. Like music, certainly what we call classic rock, or this history of like the real story of rock and roll, it's all interconnected, isn't it? I mean, I think in the UK, it was the birth of it was called the British R&B boom or whatever. But those early bands like Alexis Corner, Graham Bond, and the Moody Blues and the Stones and the Kinks, and then Cream, and a little later Zeppelin. There was a kind of Man from Man, all these bands, and everyone, John Mayall, everyone was sort of hopping from one band to the next, and certain things solidified. So from that, Paul Rogers is on this record. I knew Andy Fraser, his bandmate in Free, and got to do a tour with Andy about 10 years ago. So it's all interconnected. Pete Brown obviously had a huge, very long career in the business, and so it was just really about sort of getting out our contact books, see and contact people and see who might want to get involved. And it was just wonderful. Most of the recordings were done at Abbey Road, and most, apart from Paul Rogers' vocal, I've been trying to think back through all the sessions, and I think apart from his vocal that was recorded remotely in the US, because he is based in the US, everybody else was in the room together in Abbey Road recording live, and then with minimal fixes and overdubs and things like that. So yeah, it was really fun to have Joe Bonamassa in the room with Ginger Baker.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? I wonder what will happen if we put Joe Bonamassa and Ginger Baker in the same room.
It's going to be loud.
With some microphones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it was, as is the way with anything in life. It's all. There's always an element of experimental. You don't quite know what's going to happen, but I think if you get the right people with the right intention, you're more likely to get some chemistry and something synergistic happening, and we all shared. I think everybody involved had a respect and love for that music tradition, whether it was Cream or, you know, as you mentioned, Bobby Rush,
Yeah.
who's a legend, you know, incredible guy. And so to have bring him in and, you know, get his agreement to do some of the blues songs that Cream themselves covered, you know, that was really exciting. Like, what's Bobby going to do with Spoonful? Because Spoonful is one of the great, you know, we call it a blues song, but it's more, it's far, far more than that. You know, it's a composition. It's something that can be interpreted and stretched and augmented and taken in so many directions. So, you know, it's just lovely to have someone like Bobby with the kind of weight and strength of his whole career just come in and sort of take the lead on that. And he was great, you know, just a amazing person to be around for that day. So yeah, it was exciting for me. I mean, I'd worked with a lot of those people already, but even so, just that environment and the idea behind what we were trying to do, you know, just it was an exciting time, and I think everybody involved wanted to do their best, you know, but stay relaxed and have a good time. So
Now, kind of changing gears a little bit, talking a little more about you. You were a bit young to have experienced Cream at their peak. How old were
yeah.
you when you began to realize the impact that your father had on the world of music?
Well, I wasn't born during the Cream
Yeah.
era, just after that. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't know. I think did become aware quite early on, just because I would go to his shows and he would be on the stage and there'd be people in the audience and where they might politely clap or they might go, "Hi," or whatever, you know. But he was sort of the focus. So I suppose even before I really understood what that was, I was around it and seeing that happen. And then as I became more aware, I was aware of his talent and that people respected it and admired him and that he had this career. But he was also just my dad as
Yeah.
well, you know. So you know, we all, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? And I think I don't know, the people that I really admire, you know, wow, today I wonder if they're this, if what is it about those people, you know? What is it about those people? Are they different somehow? Do they not have to sleep, you know? Do they maybe drink a different brand of coffee to me? Is what is it? How do they manage? No, I'm kidding. So like I don't know. It's just what we know. And
Yeah.
so yes, there was definitely an awareness of that. And from a very early age, I was sort of playing music with him and he would play, you know, he would jam with me or show me things and encourage me in a, you know, in a sort of gentle way, because you know, I naturally wanted, I suppose some kids wouldn't want to be musicians, but I just naturally gravitated into it from a very early age and was playing the piano by the age of 5 and writing songs by the age of 8 or 9. So it was just a natural progression for me to be around it and forget my dad. What about me? No, I'm kidding. No, but you know what it's
Yeah.
like. It's like you're a kid, you know, you're get out the way, parents. I'm important. So yeah, there's all of that sort of toing and froing of the family dynamics and everything. But yeah, I was aware of it for sure. But you know, my father's an interesting character in that sense, because he had that huge success with Cream, and then a very long career and lots of success in other ways. But he's also kind of underrated in the
By far, yeah.
in the business, even though like if I go to, you know, I can go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and I know the guys that run it and they're always really kind to me and they say, "Oh, it's your home, come in, and whenever you're in town, come in." And so I've gone, you know, if I'm in Cleveland, I'll email them and they'll give me some passes and I'll go in, my dad's name is on a plaque on the wall, and he, you know, and he's got the whole lifetime Grammy recipient thing and all of that stuff. But even so, it's like I think he deserves a much bigger profile in
Mhm.
terms of his importance as an artist. But it's just you can't predict these things. So I think he also struggled with all of that stuff because he knew. And as I've grown and had more experience, I realize his importance as an artist and what he achieved. but history isn't always written that way, is it? It's like history is written maybe like, well, somebody else sold more records or had a better publicist or something. I don't know. So slept with the more important people. I don't know. It's complex. That's all that stuff is complex. So we just kind of we accept things for how they are, don't we? I guess.
And Cream reunited twice, 93 for their induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and again in 2005 when they did a series of concerts in London and New York. First off, what was it like for you to finally see that? And second, how did your dad feel about those reunions? Was he happy with the way they went?
Well, I was in a band in living in LA in when they got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I was like living on Sunset and Vine, like right in the heart of Hollywood. And that was like at that time sort of it's like the first band I'd ever been in that had a record deal. And I was living in a little apartment, and it was sort of gunshot city in Hollywood, and it's crazy. But yeah, I got a call from my dad. He's like, "Oh, I'm coming into town. We're doing this ceremony. Can't remember which hotel. It was one of the big hotels in LA." And so he invited me to go to it. So I actually sat with Eric, Jack, and Ginger, and Eric's date that night was Naomi Campbell. So I kind of sat next to Naomi Campbell. I can't even remember anything else except sitting next to her. I mean, can't blame me. But I don't think she looked at me once. No, maybe she did glance at me once. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, I was actually there, and it was really exciting to see those guys get up and play, together and get the award. And ZZ Top gave them the award, so I kind of hung out with them a little bit, and they were really sweet. And all kinds of people. Lenny Kravitz was there, and all kinds of people. Van Morrison got inducted at the same time, but didn't show up, of course. So yeah, it was really, really lovely to see them play then. And then when the actual proper reunion happened in 2005, it was a strange time because my dad had been diagnosed with liver cancer, and he'd had a liver transplant literally a year before the reunion concerts at the Royal Albert Hall in London. And he had gone in, as is the way with these things, everything had gone wrong. Like, he'd had the transplant. And it's a weird thing because he was diagnosed with liver cancer, but he was absolutely fine. But they said, if you don't have a transplant, you're not going to live. And so he made this decision to go on a waiting list, and then you get the call. You literally get the call, and then it's like, okay, you've got to drive into the hospital, and you're going to have the operation the next morning or whatever. So he had the operation, and then it all sort of went wrong, and he was in a coma, and they said he's not going to survive, and then he did pull through, and then they gave him these sort of anti-rejection drugs, but they gave him the wrong medication. It didn't work, and he went back into a coma, and then we thought he wasn't going to survive again. So this really, really intense, extreme health situation for him had happened literally a year before he was standing on the stage with the other two guys doing the reunion. So for him, he'd had to have kind of find his singing voice again and do vocal exercise, go back to a teacher, and he had to kind of build himself back up, and he did. He's incredible in the reunion. It's a testament to the strength that my father had in terms of his character and his sheer will of survival, and his talent. But he was that first performance, he was really, really nervous backstage, but he did it. He pulled it off. And I was in the audience that first night, and it was a very, very special atmosphere as the guys walked out on stage. It was almost like one of those things where everything's in slow motion, and they walk out, and it's like there's a hush in the crowd, because this is the thing. I guess Cream fans have been waiting for this for 2000, what would that have been, 70, like 40 years or something almost. So it was a special moment And it was a beautiful moment, and it was a kind of sacred feeling.
Mm.
The performance was a very, very special thing, and so I saw, I think, 3 or 4 of those shows in London, and then I flew in to see the final show at Madison Square Garden.
Mm.
They did that, which was equally beautiful, except by that point, I believe my dad and Ginger had fallen out again or something, because they were getting, apparently they were getting really nice offers from Japan, and to
Mm.
tour in Japan and do some other dates in the US, but it all kind of fell apart for
Yeah.
personal reasons. And I don't have the answer to why my dad and Ginger had that dynamic, but it's probably like brothers or some, sibling fallout and all of that. But yeah, it was beautiful. It was really special.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ginger plays on the record. Talk with Eric at all about playing? Do you have any kind of relationship with him these days?
Yeah, I don't know Eric well, but he's always been really nice when I've spoken to him.
Mm.
I did have a chat with him just after Ginger passed away. We spoke on the phone for quite a long time about a few things, and he was really nice. I don't ever like to bother him because he's Eric and he's got his own life, so I don't kind of call him up all the time and hassle him about anything. I think Pete did reach out to him, Pete Brown, about the Heavenly Cream project, but I think he passed on it. But then we actually recorded just before Pete passed away. We did Pete's solo record, which
Mm.
is a separate project coming out on a different label next year. That's called The Shadow Club, and Eric is on. He's performing on that record. So we did have him on a song for that record, which is beautiful, but it's an original song. It's not a Cream song. So I think maybe Eric, I don't know what his thoughts about it were, but if it was me, I might have thought, well, I don't really want to do a Cream cover, but I'm more than happy to do an original song
Mm.
for you, Pete. So yeah, it worked out quite well, I think, for Pete, because it's a beautiful record that he made right at the end of his own stuff, and I'm really happy for him, and I think he was happy to have achieved that, even though he's not going to see either. He's not here to see either of the releases. I know that he was proud of both records. So
Definitely. Well, we've been spending some time here with Malcolm Bruce. He's involved in the project called Heavenly Cream, an acoustic tribute to Cream, which is out everywhere on November 3rd. Check streaming services for the accompanying documentary out now. Malcolm, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
thanks so much, Jeff. Yeah, absolutely. I've got a record out next year, so maybe we can chat about that at some
Of
point.
course, definitely. Thank you so
Cheers.
much.
Thank you.